I have never seen people more excited to talk about their lack of excitement. You're not depressed because you still have hope. You just feel a little bit joyless and a little bit aimless. And I think a lot of us have been languishing because the world around us is standing still.
Hello and welcome to GZERO World. I'm Ian Bremmer, and today we're going to talk about work, how much fun, and how it has been forever changed by the experience of the past 18 months. Whether you spent the pandemic working from your living room couch, or you didn't have that option because you were an essential worker, or none of the above because your company was shut down, things feel very differently today, and they may be for a long time to come. What will the new normal mean for society, the economy, politics? I'll ask one of the best organizational psychologists there is, Adam Grant. Then, a look at parental leave policies around the world. Spoiler alert, we're not doing it in the United States. But first, the day, March 26, 2020, the time, 2:53 p.m. Eastern, and as the pandemic forced millions of Americans into a second straight week of working from home, journalist David Mack fired off a tweet. My boyfriend, he says, has been wearing sweats so much, he started calling normal pants hard pants. Fast forward to now, and while the pandemic continues to ravage much of the world, the rich world is opening back for business, and companies are preparing to bring their employees back to the office. The thing is, quite a few of those workers don't seem thrilled about dusting off their hard pants.
Well, as more companies put an end to remote working, experts predict there will be a wave of resignations once people have to come back.
Recent survey of 30,000 Americans found that 3 in 10 never want to return to the office again. Another poll found that 1 in 3 U.S. workers wouldn't want to work for an employer who requires them to be on site full time. And in much of Europe and Latin America, where vaccine rollout has been slower and bumpy, to say the least, the return to work conversation is still months away. Until recently, many big employers have been pretty understanding with companies like Zillow, Facebook, Twitter, allowing full-time employees to pretty much continue with remote work indefinitely. The dating app Bumble, you've heard of it, even went so far as to give all their employees a full paid week off last month to recover from pandemic burnout. But money talks. And with workplace activity in financial hubs like London and New York still 50% below normal level, Wall Street's impatience is starting to show. Take Morgan Stanley CEO Jim Gorman, who effectively told his New York City employees that they should expect to be back in their cubicles by September or else. As he put it, if you can go to a restaurant in New York City, you can come to the office, and we want you in the office. So it sure looks like we're heading for more than a few awkward HR meetings in the coming months. But there's a larger discussion to be had as well, given that so many people have relied on remote work for the past year to meet a variety of needs like taking care of their kids or their parents. If employers are going to require that their workers return to the office, what should those workers expect in return? Then there are all of the essential workers who couldn't work from home during the pandemic and who, despite the 7 p.m. pandemic cheers, never got a pay bump. And the street vendors in places like Kolkata who didn't have the option to stop working because not working meant not eating. How does a new post-pandemic approach help them? Renowned organizational psychologist Adam Grant is the perfect person to talk about the future of work after the pandemic. His new book, Think Again, explores how individuals, groups, and institutions can rethink long-held mindsets and skill sets to adapt to our changing world. Here's our conversation. Adam Grant, the book is Think Again, and when we talk about the pandemic, thinking again about the way we work seems to be the one experience that pretty much everyone is going through right now. How do you start to think about that issue?
Well, Ian, I'm amazed at how slow many leaders were to rethink how and where we work. In the winter of 2018, I went to a bunch of CEOs and startup founders, and I told them we already have extensive evidence that as long as people are in the office half the week, if you let them work from anywhere the other half, they're more productive, more satisfied, and less likely to quit, and there's no discernible cost to relationships or collaboration. So why don't we do a remote Friday experiment? And they all balked. We can't open Pandora's box. Everyone's going to procrastinate. Our culture's going to fall apart. That's not the way we've always done things. And fast forward 2 years, there's a global pandemic. Some of those leaders have now decided to be remote first companies indefinitely, and most of the others have gone to hybrid. And one of the things that drives me crazy looking back is they were stuck thinking like preachers, basically defending their existing views. Or they went into prosecutor mode and they attacked my data. Instead of thinking like scientists and saying, I've got to look for reasons why I might be wrong, not just reasons why I must be right. I need to run more experiments to test and learn. I don't know that now is the time that we ought to be making a permanent commitment when it comes to how and where we work, but it is the ideal moment to think more like a scientist, run more experiments, and test and learn to figure out what might work for your organization, your people, or your culture. I will tell you though, Ian, I am sorely disappointed in the number of CEOs who are coming out and saying, you are not engaged if you're not in the office. And we can't really get things done unless we're all physically in the same place. Last time I checked, and we've been studying this for over half a century, productivity is about the purpose and the process that you bring to your job. It's not about the place you happen to be doing it in. And of course, if you're in a manufacturing job, it's not that easy to work from home. I don't think you want your ER physicians and nurses trying to work from home 24/7. But most Americans work in service jobs and knowledge jobs. And so many of those jobs can be done effectively, efficiently, even creatively from home. And I think that leaders who are insisting that everybody has to be in the office all the time are probably in danger of becoming obsolete.
Where do you think you're going to see, as a consequence, business being the most disrupted as a result of that kind of thinking, if companies were willing to move on it?
I think we'd see the most disruption to jobs where there are real multiplier effects from collaboration. So look at creative industries. How much of Hollywood freaked out when they realized we're not going to have a bunch of writers in a writer's room, or we're not going to have a bunch of designers, if you're in the tech world, who are all sitting together. And I think that there's a huge opportunity to reimagine that and say, maybe your people don't even all have to live in the same place. Maybe you let them work from anywhere. And then once a month, you have a retreat where people come together and they blitz for 2 or 3 days. And then they divide and conquer again.
Leaving the creative economy and talking about essential workers for a moment, I mean, it has to be one of the most extraordinary misnomers of the pandemic. The people that, in principle, we truly rely on in the front lines, who have the least flexibility in terms of how they work, when they work, whether they work, and are also completely not remunerated as if that work is essential to the way we live our lives. Do you see us doing anything about that?
I don't know. I think this is a moment where we ought to be rethinking our national policy on essential work. I think about hazard pay and how much that's been a norm in dangerous occupations for decades. Well, where was hazard pay for all the teachers, for all the medical professionals, for all the warehouse workers who put their lives at risk to keep the world running and to try to keep the economy alive as well? I think we need a conversation about that. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I'd sure welcome it.
Do you think principal takeaway from the pandemic in terms of workplace is actually more inequality of opportunity?
I'm afraid that you might be right. I think the amount of opportunity net is going up, but I don't think it's going to be distributed evenly. And I think that the people who have flexibility, to your point, the knowledge workers, the creative workers, the people doing sort of white-collar or high-end professional services are going to be the ones who benefit from most of that flexibility and opportunity. And that could probably, in some cases, will amplify the divisions that already exist in our radically unequal world.
Do you think that the Protestant work ethic, such as it has been, sort of mythologized in the West, is something we actively need to get rid of? Do human beings, in your view, need to be seeking so much purpose in their employment?
I mean, we're an outlier on the world stage when it comes to the primacy of work in our lives. And I think we do it at our own peril. I think we're just seeing extraordinary levels of burnout in workplaces across the US. We're seeing some people burn out because they're being forced to work extraordinary hours or face unreasonable demands by their employers. We're seeing other people burn out because they are workaholics, not the healthy, engaged kind, but the chronic, compulsive kind where you feel guilty if you're not working and you're stressed that you're going to fall behind or lose your job. And over time, we know that undermines the quality of work you do. And I think that just expecting people to be engaged in the job if they don't have quality of life feels like something you would have expected maybe half a century ago. It's about time that our leaders catch up.
I mean, it's a very sensible and humanist perspective that you offer. If I'm looking top down, my response to you is the outliers in terms of the places where individual work ethic is the most intense, forced upon it by society and driven by the individual, are China, the United States, and Japan, the three largest economies in the world. So, I mean, if anything, you would think, given that lineup, it is going to be really hard to address.
I think we're confusing the number of hours you work with the importance and quality of work that you do. I don't know. I mean, empirically, if you look at the data, I don't know that many people who can focus and do their best work more than 5 to 6 hours a day. And even those who can, right, you start to see their productivity trail off. You start to see them make more errors. The data on physicians are terrifying on this, right? Where we see that if you work an 80 or 90 hour week, often your error rate will double or triple. And we're talking about medical errors. You could amputate the wrong leg. You could give someone a drug that's supposed to save their lives and they're allergic to it. And if we drop people down to working 60, 65, 55 hours a week, that error rate plummets.
There's plenty of talk about people having burnout, Zoom burnout, sick of remote burnout, lockdown burnout. You write about something else. You say that the real problem is that people are languishing in their jobs. What did you mean by that?
I've never seen people more excited to talk about their lack of excitement. Languishing is a term that was coined by a sociologist, which captures the void right in between depression and flourishing. It's basically the absence of well-being. So you feel like you have a sense of emptiness and stagnation. You're not burned out because you still have energy. You're not depressed because you still have hope. You just feel a little bit joyless and a little bit aimless. And I think a lot of us have been languishing because the world around us is standing still. That's the bad news. I think the good news is that the opposite of languishing is progress. There's evidence that the single biggest driver of daily energy and joy is just a sense of forward movement. It doesn't have to be a big triumph. It could be a small win. And just a little moment of mastery, a jolt of connection, even just a sense that I helped one person today seems to help people move from languishing toward flourishing. And I think we could all use more of those moments right now.
Okay, so lightning round. While we close up, I'll give you a bunch of quick questions. You tell me first thing that comes to your mind. It should be amusing that way. Start off, since it's connected to what you just said. How do you disconnect from work?
I play words with friends and I go on water slides with our kids whenever possible.
Do you think happy hours make employees happier?
No, and during the pandemic, I think happy hours made people extremely sad because we're all still a little bit isolated. And now it's yet another thing to add to what was already a 2 or 3 hour longer workday.
How do you bring back fun that's not mandatory in the workspace?
I love the distinction between deep fun and shallow fun. Shallow fun is the happy hour. Deep fun is I'm working on a meaningful problem with people who make me better. And I think we need those kinds of problems to solve.
When's the last time you accidentally replied all to a work email?
I think it was about 3 months ago.
Was it super embarrassing?
No, it was an inside joke that no one else got.
When people say things like circle back, close the loop, hard stop, can we kill those things now that we're killing the regular work environment?
Let's kill them. My colleague Bob Sutton calls them jargon monoxide, which I think is a great way to describe them. And I don't know why we need these buzzwords. They don't seem to help anyone. There's some hilarious research by Zach Brown, which shows that people use that kind of jargon because they're insecure and they want to sound smart.
And could we have done this interview by email?
Probably.
Adam Grant, the book is Think Again. It's something he does all the time, even a bit in this interview. Good to see you, my friend.
You too. Thanks, Ian.
Working used to mean long hours spent in an office and away from your family. 2020 brought the opposite, 24/7 lockdowns with the kids. Parents were teachers and babysitters overnight, while many of them continued to work full-time jobs. How will the changes we've experienced in the pandemic impact our demand for time at home with the kids? And what will it take to make that feasible? Here's a look at how other countries do it and how the United States stacks up.
It's time to pass paid family leave.
Paid family leave.
The merits of paid family leave.
12 weeks of paid leave and medical leave, family medical leave.
Democrats and Republicans are talking about it, so why don't we have it? America is one of only 2 countries in the world that offers no guaranteed paid leave for new parents. In 2019, President Donald Trump approved a measure that gave federal employees up to 12 weeks. Step in the right direction, but not much of one when you consider that most of the U.S. workplace is excluded from that policy. To put things into perspective, mothers in other OECD countries receive an average of 18 weeks off. Sweden, I know you always talk about Sweden when you're talking about this kind of stuff. They've been offering a parental leave program since 1974 and gives both parents up to 480 days to care for each new child. What if you have twins? No idea. And it's not just new mothers who use this benefit. 8 out of 10 fathers in Sweden take at least 4 months off to help raise their children. The policy has been viewed as a success and has led to one perk that might make other moms around the world kind of jealous.
When you're both at home, do you change as many nappies as your wife?
Yeah. More, yeah.
More,
yeah.
Really?
I wouldn't. She would let me know if I didn't.
There are tangible benefits to this policy, too. One study found that for every month a father took of paternity leave in Sweden, the mother's income increased by 6.7%. But women, even in the most progressive countries, still face what is called the motherhood penalty, the perception that working mothers are somehow less competent than their childless counterparts, which can lead to lower salaries and fewer promotions. In 2017, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern became one of only 2 female elected heads of state to give birth while in office. I mean, not literally in office, and the only elected leader to go on maternity leave. And the 6 weeks she spent bonding with her new baby was met with controversy.
It is a woman's decision about when they choose to have children. It should not predetermine whether or not they are given a job or have job opportunities.
What people are doing, you're saying that that would prejudice my decision.
Why would you ask if it wasn't going to prejudice your decision?
Questions like this may explain why 1 in 4 American mothers return to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. 1 fortnight! President Joe Biden's American Families Plan includes 12 weeks of paid family leave, but pays for the benefits through taxing the wealthy, an unpopular move for Republicans. 9 U.S. states have enacted their own paid leave programs, but the question remains, when will the United States catch up to the rest of the world? That's our show this week. Come back next week. And if you like what you see, you want to think about the future of work, you don't want to think about it, you're sick of work, it doesn't matter. Either way, why don't you take a minute to sign up for GZERO's most excellent morning newsletter, Signal. You know you'll want to.